the Ural Mountains. They stretch across the heart of Russia like a jagged scar, ancient, indifferent, and impossibly silent. For centuries, travelers have spoken of this place in whispers, a land of endless forests, frozen rivers, and fog that moves with its own intent. But in the mid-20th century, as the Cold War deepened, that silence was broken. Not by nature, but by men chasing power they could barely understand. Our story begins in 1958, at the height of Soviet secrecy. Hidden beyond the official maps, somewhere between Chelyabinsk and Sverdlovsk, there was said to be a facility known only by its internal designation, Object 23-5. It didn't appear on military charts. It didn't exist in local registries. Yet it drew electricity, fuel, and personnel from half a dozen surrounding bases. Officially, it was a materials testing site. Unofficially, it was where science began to blur into something else. Reports later recovered from defected technicians hint that the goal of Object 23-5 was not weapons in the traditional sense, not missiles, nor tanks, nor chemical compounds. It was people, human endurance, human adaptation, human control. At the time, the Soviet Union was obsessed with the idea that man himself could be weaponized, perfected into an instrument of loyalty and destruction. After all, machines could fail. But if you could program the mind, alter the limits of fear and fatigue, you could create a soldier who never stopped. Declassified fragments from the Kishtim region mention a sub-project known as Cheohung Mist, or Direction Mist, a cryptic phrase appearing in both Russian and Vietnamese translation in diplomatic archives, suggesting collaboration or information exchange with foreign allies. The mist, in Soviet technical jargon, referred to a neural conditioning process, supposedly a way to blur emotional response and moral hesitation in combatants. Most of what we know today comes from scraps, half-burned files, intercepted memos, and the oral testimonies of those who escaped before the site went silent. According to one engineer, Mikhail K., who fled through Finland in 1971, Object 23-5 was located near a natural cave system riddled with toxic gases and unstable rock. They built the laboratory directly above it, using the caves for isolation chambers and acoustic experiments. Strange resonance tests designed to manipulate how the human brain processes command and pain. In his final interview before disappearing, Mikhail said this: "They wanted to remove hesitation, to erase the line between obedience and identity. But the deeper we went, the more the mountain itself began to react." That last line haunted every researcher who read it. What did he mean? The mountain reacted? Satellite imagery from the early 1980s shows what looks like a massive subsidence crater in that region, consistent with underground collapse. But there's no record of mining there. No earthquake, no known explosion. And yet, several nearby villages reported nights when the sky glowed faintly red and a low hum rolled across the hills for hours. Those who lived closest to the site claimed that fog began to form unnaturally, not rolling down from the slopes, but rising upward from the ground. It smelled of ozone and burnt metal. Livestock grew restless. Dogs refused to go near the tree line. And by dawn, radio interference would spike across a 200-kilometer radius, briefly disrupting communications between Sverdlovsk and Chelyabinsk. The official Soviet explanation was atmospheric disturbance caused by experimental radar. But internal communications from 1962 reference something called human vector anomalies. The same phrase later appears in Soviet psychological warfare documents related to sensory deprivation and neural isolation feedback. To understand what that means, you have to picture the era. Across the world, both sides of the Iron Curtain were racing to explore the limits of the human mind. The CIA had MK-Ultra. The Soviets had Bluebird equivalents buried under state secrecy. Electroencephalography, hypnosis, psychotropic conditioning, all were fair game if they promised an advantage. The Ural facilities were among the most remote and least monitored. That made them ideal for testing not only theories but people. Witnesses describe groups of volunteers, often prisoners, deserters, or those accused of political dissent, being transferred by covered trucks into the forest and never seen again. The few technicians who handled logistics said the air always felt heavier near the underground entrance, as if the mountain exhaled through invisible vents. In 1963, a classified incident known internally as the Mist event led to a temporary evacuation. Documents declassified after the fall of the Soviet Union indicate a massive pressure fluctuation underground, followed by system-wide electrical failure. When power returned, several staff members were missing. The security footage was reportedly corrupted, but surviving logs mention motion sensors triggered hours after the collapse, inside sealed sections. The story might have ended there, just another Cold War rumor. If not for a single surviving reel of magnetic tape found in the early 1990s by scavengers near Verkhnaya Gubaka. The tape bore the inscription Chiu-04, test. When cleaned and played, it contained no speech, only a steady, rhythmic pulse like breathing, layered under radio static. Some researchers say the waveform matches the human heartbeat pattern. Others say it's mechanical. But perhaps the most unsettling evidence came years later, when a team of environmental inspectors entered the restricted forest zone in 2003, investigating illegal waste dumping. Among the birches, they found rusted fencing, fragments of Soviet warning signs, and a series of concrete foundations covered in moss. Inside one of them, beneath a collapsed ceiling, lay several pieces of machinery fused into the rock as though melted. Radiation readings were low, but the magnetometer readings spiked erratically. Local folklore has since absorbed the site into legend. Hunters call it the valley that breathes. They say fog rises there even in clear weather, and sometimes at night you can hear what sounds like footsteps on gravel, though there's nothing to see. Officially, no government acknowledges Object 23-5 ever existed, but archival cross-checks confirm multiple overlapping coordinates between Soviet military geophysical surveys, underground nuclear testing logs, and decommissioned weather monitoring projects that never reported any data. Something was there. Something large, expensive, and deeply classified. And yet, the most chilling part of this story isn't what remains. It's what was erased. Entire personnel lists deleted, family pensions mysteriously discontinued, names blacked out in rosters that survived every other revision. It's as if the people who worked on Chelyabinsk Mist were systematically removed from history itself. If the Cold War taught the world anything, it's that truth can be buried deeper than any weapon. Beneath concrete, beneath memory, beneath the quiet hum of a mountain breathing in the dark.